Hi, guys. Welcome back to the Talkaholics podcast. This is Iman.
And this is Raazia.
So today's topic, we want to talk about something that recently came up in the news. Super disappointing.
Yeah.
So we want to talk about the whole incident with Justin Trudeau. If you are not from Canada or just don't know who he is, he's the Prime Minister of Canada. He's from the Liberal Party.
Yeah, if I was going to say if you don't know, I'm so sorry. It's going to be big news for you.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not... I feel like if you watch, like, international news, you should know who he is because he's been in a couple of different scandals over his time. Or memes, yeah. Over his time as the Prime Minister, which is coming to a close this October, so please vote, people. Thank you. Anyways, we'll talk about that after, though. So, Justin Trudeau, So, there was a couple incidents, actually. So, let's start with the first one.
The main one.
The main one. So, a picture was released. I think it was from the Times. That's how it first got leaked. That's where I saw it first.
Something like that.
Which is weird, because the Times isn't a Canadian publication.
Yeah. Somehow, got it.
Anyways... But a picture was released of Justin Trudeau in, like, 1991 at a party at the private school that he was working at in British Columbia.
Yeah.
And he was photographed, and it was an Arabian Nights themed party, which let's not even talk about that. But anyways, and he was wearing, I guess, Arabian-style clothing, whatever that may be. He was supposed to be Aladdin.
Yeah.
And he is in, like, I guess you would call it brown face, if he's supposed to be Aladdin, right?
Yeah, he is totally brown face.
Like, versus blackface. Yeah. He's in brown face, and there's multiple pictures of him smiling with different faculty members, and he's the only one who decided to paint his skin. Everybody else didn't do that. So that's the first picture that came out, and as people can probably assume, there was outrage about it because that's ridiculous. He's supposed to be the leader of our country, and then this thing is leaked. And of course, let's cut to the chase. Of course, this is politically charged.
Yeah.
He's going to re-elect as prime minister. I mean, going to run for re-election.
Yes. Yeah.
And so obviously, it's a perfect time for this to come out.
Okay.
So it can sway voters, right? Which is unfortunate, but it's also. I mean, like, he did it, and he has to own up to it.
Exactly.
So that was the first one.
Yeah.
And then there was two other incidences that came out after. So one was, I think he was in, like, his dorm room or something. And it's a picture of him, like, in a T-shirt with his arms raised, like it looks like he's yelling or something. And he's in blackface, and he has what looks to be an afro on.
Yeah, I think I know the picture.
Yeah, and then there's a third picture of him performing.
Okay, that's
at his high school in Montreal. He's singing a song, and he's also in blackface and has an afro on. So 3 different incidences at 3 different times in his life where he decided it would be a good idea to paint his skin to make him look like whoever he was trying to portray. And, this is not... I'm personally not surprised because... white people are always shady. Yeah. So, I mean, like, I'm truly not surprised, especially, like, politicians in general, white politicians, like, I don't trust politicians in general, but, like, white politicians always have some sort of, and, they can say, as a Liberal Party, you have to align yourself with certain values, because the Liberal Party is for, like, the middle class, for, like, the minorities and blah, blah, blah. So, obviously, you can't be out here going, like, I'm a racist. Like, you can't do that. But I'm not very surprised that, and people might be upset with me for saying it, but I'm not surprised that something like this came out, to be honest.
It's funny that you said that, because even when I heard about it, because the brown face thing first came out, I was like, oh. And then, obviously, obviously you're still, like, upset. Obviously, you're still, like, come on. Like, especially with Trudeau, like, we all know that he's, like, the kind of goody two shoes of, like, Canada, and, like, in the sense that, like, everybody outside of Canada looks at him as, like, this perfect leader who is not only, like, super duper attractive, but, like, he is, he's the face of, like, that whole time when other countries were refusing to take in refugees, that he, on the behalf of Canada, was like, no, we'll take anybody, blah blah blah, all this stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
And since when you're at the face of accepting people who are different than you, and then these things come out, like obviously you're like,
it's disappointing.
Man. Oh man, you know, as a Canadian, I guess. Yeah. And then for me, it was like because I heard about it on the radio when it first like came out, like the news. And for me, what kind of caught my attention, even right after seeing the pictures, was just like hearing what other people had to say about it. And like my head kind of goes straight to how people talk about when something happens 20 years ago, whether it's a tweet, whether it's doing blackface like years ago, how people are so quick to say, but in 2019 we live in PC culture, so everybody knows what's right and what's wrong. But 20 years ago was so different, and I'm just here like I've been here 20 years ago.
Yeah, thank you.
It's not any different.
Like,
Do you know what I'm saying?
I mean, we've been alive. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like people are thinking, yes, for sure, we're definitely in a time that's more progressive, that knowledge is more widespread, and
I'll give it that.
more things are being talked about, and also information can be more spread because of social media and the internet. Like, it's more advanced than it was 20 years ago.
Absolutely.
But racial tension, racism, discrimination has existed very much 20 years ago, and people knew it was wrong. So
that's what I was gonna say.
You know,
I was like, for me, I like think because again, people kept saying on the radio, in person, what people were talking about in my workplace, all this stuff kept going back to like, but you have to give them the benefit of the doubt. It was 20 years ago, and in my head, I'm like, even when I was 20 years ago, I would have been 4. If I went to Halloween in either like makeup that's like darker than my skin just because I felt like that would suit a Disney character, I fucking know that's wrong.
Yeah.
Like at that age, like just because like I would feel shit. Like that's disgusting. Like that's
I mean,
gross.
Never. I don't know if it's okay, but the thing is, this is where I come from. I'm like us, like we, because of who we are, because of our cultures, our backgrounds, like we have grown up to have this consciousness. I don't know how it has become that, because it's definitely not something that
you were sat down
and talked about, because my parents definitely didn't talk to me about it. But for some reason we have this consciousness. But if I want to dress up as someone where my skin tone is different than them, I never in my mind thought, oh, I need to make my skin
dark
or match them, because I know it's a character.
Yeah, at the end of the day.
And I don't need to exactly look like them to dress up like them. That's not how it works.
Yeah.
But what's really disappointing, so Trudeau, like I said, I'm not surprised. What's disappointing, like you said, is people's reactions to it.
Yeah.
It's so annoying and frustrating that people are trying to make excuses for him. And like I see where people are coming from, because they're like, oh my god, like we can't let, like, we don't want to, be mad at him or whatever, because we still want to vote for the Liberal Party because we don't want Conservatives to win. And I get that thinking, because Conservatives winning would be horrible.
Yeah, which is so. I mean, we're almost balancing with the worst of two evils.
That's what it is.
It's correct. Yeah, no.
I understand why people are, but just because you still want to vote for the Liberal Party doesn't mean you can't be upset about what just happened. Exactly. And people are being so like complacent. Like I literally fought my family. I literally fought them out, and they were like, no, it's whatever, it's so long ago, like why this is just them trying to get us to people not to vote for the Liberal Party. I'm like, okay, I understand, but you need to be critical, like you can't just let things go, because his actions speak louder than words, and this is not this may be the first time that he has shown his true colors in terms of like racism, but this is not the first time he's been a part of something that's like controversial. Like his whole pipeline situation, that whole he's been a part of things that aren't, and he covers it up, with things like the whole refugee. Like this is great. I'm so glad that that's something that happened, and proud to be part of a country that is allowing refugees in. But just because he does like one thing doesn't mean he's excused for a bad thing he does. It's just like, I remember my grandma was, I'm like, I'm not going to fight you. But like, come on. My grandma was like, it was like, we don't know this dude. Anyways, sorry, I'm getting worked up. She was like, we've known him for what, the past 4 years? He's never been racist. And now this comes up? And I'm just like, that's not how it works. First of all, we don't know him personally. Okay, he is a political figure. Okay,
he's supposed to keep a good friend.
Yeah, he has to. That's what I was telling her. I was like, that's his job. He is the face of the Liberal Party. He cannot do things like this, because then he won't be the face of the Liberal Party. He won't have power if he doesn't work with the minorities because that's who's voting for him.
Yeah, exactly.
And she was like, no, and she wouldn't. Anyways, she did. My whole family wants to vote Liberal, and I'm just like, I understand it, but I understand the choice that they think they need to make, because if you don't vote for Liberal and you vote for someone else, then you're just giving votes to the Conservatives because no one else is voting for like the other parties like NDP and Green Party and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it gets more complex, like considering like who I think. With Andrew Scheer being part of the Conservatives who are terrified, and I think that is almost its own conversation, right? Because we can go into like strategic voting, we can go into like,
hasn't it always been strategic? When has it ever been vote for the things that you actually want?
No, I like
because I don't remember a time because I've only been able to vote for a couple elections.
But yeah, like again, like just going back to like kind of the past that Trudeau's been getting with this so far, in that like. People keep saying, like, again, when people keep saying, like, the 20-year thing, like, 20 years ago is a different space, it's a different time. And then when I say, like, oh, but I know that I would have known better, but the response that I've been getting so far is, like, oh, but you're a person of color, so of course you know the difference. And so the thing that I think that's problematic with that, I get the intent. They're not, those people who are saying that are not, like, don't mean badly. They're going to also say, like, well, that's because, we do get a different kind of perspective than white people, sure. But... At the same time, that it's like saying, the people who are doing things like blackface and brownface, Trudeau, for example, that's also telling me that 20 years ago, as an educated man, he had no idea what blackface was.
Thank you. He was a teacher.
You're telling me, like, that's basic stuff you learn in American history, which, to be honest, I'm a colored person, so that's not my history. That's not my culture. I'm learning about it. And I know about it. And you're telling me he doesn't know as a person who teaches people.
As a person who went through higher education and now teaches young people, like,
so I don't understand what this past
and
is
he
about.
was
I'm a colored person,
and people are trying to say like he was young. Okay, so maybe the first 2 times he was young, like he was in high school, and maybe he lived in Quebec in a all white town. Very, very possible, because Quebec is still like that in some places. Like, except for Montreal. Like, literally all of Quebec except for Montreal is still like that. I get that. Okay, fine. He was in high school. He was young. Maybe the second time he was in college. Still in a white town. So, like, people didn't really talk about things like that, and no one would call him out for it because no one was there. Even though it's not really our jobs as minorities to call things out like that. But whatever. Fine. But the third time, you were a 29-year-old man. You were grown.
This is what I'm saying.
You were an educator.
That's why you don't get the pass.
And you were in an area where you could see by the pictures of faculty where there was diversity.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly.
How do you think that was okay?
Exactly. So that's my thing. People keep going like, it's fine. That was a time when people were ignorant and all that stuff. But I'm like, but that doesn't mean all of a sudden now, 2019, like books on American history have changed. And all of a sudden, we're now learning
like
what blackface
we still learn.
That's been happening.
Blackface has been an issue for so freaking long. Like, it's been an issue.
This is
from the.
It's a thing now.
It's not a thing now because this is how no matter what you learn about. Okay, if you learn about American history and you learn about slavery, blackface is going to come up because they didn't allow black people to do anything. So how else would they portray black people with white people? Like, it's been a thing for so long, and to say that you don't know about it or that you don't know that it's wrong is false. Like, don't. It's just like, don't feign ignorance.
Yeah.
Because even if you versus 20 years ago versus now, even if you were to grow up in an all-white town and you've never met a black person in real life and stuff, like, I feel like something in your conscience is like, this is probably not what I should be doing. But the thing is, what allows you to do it is that you don't think there are any repercussions for yourself. You don't think that it's that big of a deal because it's just a costume. I'm just having fun. Like, that is your... Yeah. That's literally your whiteness. Like, it's just...
Yeah. And that goes into its own, like, the whole Halloween debate of, like, cultural appropriation.
Cultural appropriation, a whole other thing. But, like, yeah, it's just... It's,
Yeah, I think, but you're right. Like, what it comes down to is not that he didn't know that it's a bad thing. No. I don't think you can tell me that he had no idea what blackface was, again, at the age that he was 20 years ago. But I do think it's him having the ability to, again, like being, you know, a white guy and whatever, being able to be like, oh, but this is for fun.
Yeah.
And then being able to get away with it, which he has. So.
And now for the people who are like, oh, well, he apologized. Well, freaking course that he apologized.
Yeah,
he wants to be
say?
reelected. Like, why would he? He's going to be like, oh, no. And even his apology was like, really, was it a sincere apology? Because it was like, oh, I didn't even remember that happened. Oh, wow, whoop-de-doo. Like, nice for you to just be able to forget that you did block. Like, what?
Exactly.
How do you forget? Like, you didn't forget. Don't.
Yeah, exactly.
You probably, if, let's be honest, as a political figure, you have to cover your tracks.
Yeah.
So you mostly thought those tracks were covered. And then the Conservative Party was like, let's track something about him to put out. And then they were probably holding on to this, waiting for the perfect time to release it. And they did. And I was reading an article, and one of the pictures for sure came from the Conservative Party. It even mentioned in the article. So, like, yes, it's a political attack. It's a game. That's how it works in politics. That's the thing. But, I mean, this. At the end of this, he's gonna be excused. Like, he's gonna be fine.
Yeah.
After all of his things, he's gonna be fine. And that's the thing about being a white man in this world.
Yeah. For me, it's like even a part, like, yeah, I understand the pictures came from the Conservative Party, whatever. Like, for me, it's like completely apart from that, completely separate from that. The whole reason why those pictures came out, again, my head is still focused on the fact of like the discussions around these pictures to begin with. Like, so like I feel like I can distance myself from the fact that this is happening during like the election season or whatever, just because like when anything like this happens, which happens pretty frequently over the past few years, you know, like this person said this thing, this tweet came out, this whatever, you know, we get video clips like all the time about people doing awful things years ago.
Yeah.
That for me the most not shocking, but like interesting or appalling thing that kind of happens is like the discussions around it, and how easily people are able to like look the other way, or you know, cancel culture is also a thing. Like people are quickly to cancel, fucking make sure someone doesn't have a life anymore.
And that's the thing. Like cancel culture is really toxic, especially now because it's like it's so easy to pull things up from people's past. And I understand, like, yes, people can change and people can learn from their mistakes and they can be a different person than they were years ago. Yeah. Great. But doesn't erase the fact that you've done what you've done. But, like, cancel culture is, I'm not completely on board with it because, like, I think we should have conversations. We shouldn't just be like, oh, you did this? Okay, canceled, bye. Like, no, because if we don't have conversations, how are we going to, like, inform people of what was wrong with it, and also like that's what, exactly. You know what I mean, like have a conversation and be able to move forward, not just be like canceled by. There are certain like instances where yes, people need to be canceled, like they've just
like outright,
sure, but I think a conversation always needs to come first. Like have a conversation about it, discuss it, be critical. No matter if you like the person or not, like be critical about it, and don't let your personal feelings come into conversations like that, because that is a whole other issue. But like, so in this case, like we unfortunately can't cancel Justin Trudeau because what that means for us is that we have a higher chance of having a really hateful leader come into Canada, and we did that before. We don't need that again. No, you know, we already had the Conservatives in there for like what 6 years
before Trudeau.
Yeah.
It might have been, because he was re-elected.
Yeah. Harper. Yeah. And Harper was horrible.
Yeah, and he was also an outright, like, I don't like minority stuff.
Yeah, he was not like as outright as Trump, per se, but like, he made it pretty known in the way he navigated his space, the way he created, like, policies, and the way he okayed things. Anyways, he's in the past. So, having the Liberal Party lead and having Justin Trudeau in power has been great for Canada. Like, great things have happened. And it's disappointing that it's come to something like this. Yeah. But I still encourage all young people, please vote. I believe that you should vote for the party that you believe in most. Like so if that's the Liberal Party, like, vote for the Liberal Party. Yeah. If that's the Conservative Party, I don't like you. Sorry, I can't even say anything because like literally you don't like me. If you vote for the Conservative Party, you're not with me on this, okay? Like you're not here for me. You're not here for my people. So
there you go.
So that's that. If you want to vote for the NDP or Green Party, like I'm a big advocate for voting for the things you believe in. But I also like there's also a part of my brain that's like strategic voting is a thing,
yeah.
and sometimes it's necessary, and it's just so it's so frustrating because like I don't care if people know, but I've always been an NDP supporter. Like ever since I learned about politics in our civics class in grade 10, before I could even vote. Like the NDP party is like ever since Jack Layton was the one, you know. Like the NDP party has always been my party, my go-to. That's like the one that I kind of gravitate towards the most. And like their leader right now is great, Jagmeet Singh. Like he's an amazing leader, and he stands for a lot of good things. And he's a minority. Like that would be amazing to have. But Canada
doesn't look completely like us.
No, Canada, like even I guess when most people think of Canada, at least from my perspective, like we think of Toronto. And so like Toronto's a very diverse city, but that's it.
Besides that,
unless you're going to like major city, like Vancouver.
Montreal.
Other than that,
but it's a huge country.
It's a huge country filled with white space. Like that's what it is. It's a lot of white space, and I'm not saying all white people are going to vote Conservative. No, that's not the case, because there are white liberals, much like Justin Trudeau, who don't really like us, but they're liberals because of like whatever values they have. Like they're low key still racist, but like whatever.
We're calling out everybody today.
Anyways, I'm not saying that all white people are voting Conservative, but the fact that there's still so much hate in the country. There's always like you hear about it every day. Different attacks on people of color, different attacks on people who are different, who aren't white. Because we're just existing. Like it's so I'm very much aware of the climate here in Canada, and I'm very much aware that there are a lot of supporters of the Conservative Party for whatever reason, and there's a lot of minorities that are also supporters of the Conservative Party, because of certain values and because they align themselves, even though the Conservative Party is not there for them.
I was gonna say like I think Conservatives ultimately get a lot of votes from if it's from people within our community. It's because they have like this weird. Well, not weird, but like this notion that like because the Conservatives have been in power for so long, or know what it's like to have so many seats in the House and stuff, they know how to run the country. They've had experience. So when it comes to voting for smaller parties like NDP or the Green Party, they're nervous because they're like, oh, but they haven't done this before. I don't know. Kind of thing. So it's that weird sense of trust with something that they also know is kind of shady. Because, and again, another reason why people would vote for Conservatives, I know, is because of like the financial aspect. Like this is a party that's going to get us jobs. This is a party that's going to lower taxes. Blah blah, all this stuff. So it's very financially driven. I already know that.
And also there's a lot of people from like religious communities where like they think that the Conservative Party aligns with their like religious values the most. So. So like they think that it aligns with their and I'm talking Muslims too, Muslims, Christians, like so I think they think that it aligns with their religious values more, and then so they kind of ignore all the other aspects of the party, and they're just like, oh, if we vote Liberals or NDP, like they're too loosey-goosey, like they're too liberal, they're too left, like that kind of stuff. So
there's a weird like insecurity about that, about like voting for those kind of parties just because they're new, and again they're more likely to not do things by the book. But my take with like voting, considering the seats in right around the corner, I think ultimately like if you have an idea of who you want to vote for, you should ultimately vote, because I think like within the last few years especially, and I think this is part of our generation kind of thinking this way. I'll be honest. of like, you know, if there's no party that you see that you like, you shouldn't vote.
Yeah.
Which I think is a dangerous place to put yourself
Mm-hmm.
in, because a lot of people think that when they do that, they're not making they're choosing to not make a decision, and I think people should recognize that is making a decision.
Yeah.
Because choosing to be indifferent is a decision. You are putting your hands up and saying, you know, I'm not a part of this when you absolutely are.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely are, because, you know, that's somebody, even if, say, for example, you want to vote for the Green Party, right? But at the end of the day, you're like, oh, my vote's not going to make a difference. You know, I don't care, whatever. I don't really like any of the parties that are kind of running. What ends up happening is that not necessarily that your single vote would make the difference, but it's voters like you who, if you voted, could earn your party at least a single seat
Exactly.
in the House when you know, bills are being negotiated. You at least have that perspective of, like, you know, if you're environmentally conscious, that voice has a say.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think that's what people don't understand. Like, they don't fully understand how...
Yeah, that you're not just voting in leaders.
Yeah, they don't fully understand how, like, how things are run in the Canadian government.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate because the whole point of voting when you're, 19?
Yeah, I actually don't know when you start voting.
Is it 18 or 19 in Canada?
Search it. You keep going.
Yikes. I'm going to talk about how people don't have knowledge, and I don't have knowledge about this.
Wait, what age do you
But
vote
the
at?
fact that you vote when, like, at a certain age, and it's after you graduate high school, is you go through elementary school and you go through high school learning about Canadian, like, history, and part of that is learning about the Canadian government.
18.
And 18, okay, that makes more sense. Yeah. So you go through, like, even if you don't like politics and whatever, and you don't take, like, a political course in high school, you still have to go through civics, and civics talks about the Canadian government and how it's run. So I think you should have some knowledge there to know that, yes, like, these elections are voting in leaders, but it's also allowing parties to have a voice when it comes to big decisions. And so, like, you have to vote. And this reminds me of that class we took together. So me and Raazia took a class in summer school after first year of university together. And I don't think we planned it, right? We just ended up being in the same class. Yeah. So we were in this communications course.
Yeah.
And I remember our prof was so passionate about voting, and he even made it, like, an assignment for us to go and vote, and if we were to vote, we would get, like, bonus points on a quiz or something like that. So you would have to, like, tweet him a picture of you, like, not actually voting because that's illegal, but, like, outside by like by a sign that says poll, or Elections Ontario, whatever, wherever you were voting, and then send him a picture saying you voted. And then he would, like, give you bonus marks or whatever. And so we had a discussion, I remember, about what he thought of people who didn't vote. And he was like, and we had, like, an actual discussion. He was asking us, like, if you don't vote, are you part of are you a problem? Like, are you to blame for whatever happens? And then some people were like, no, like, if we have the right to vote, we have the right not to vote as well. And then he said, yeah. And then he right out told them, he was like, but you are, he's like, you are the problem. He's like, if something, and I kind of agree with it, because, like, let's take this, the American election where Trump got elected. Like, how many people decided, they didn't want to vote because they didn't like Trump or Hillary, but then Trump got elected. So, like, imagine if you had
the
just,
difference was tiny.
So imagine if you had just, like, voted, and I understand, like, I truly do. Like, if you find that, because Hillary Clinton isn't any greater than Trump, she's just, in fact, some people think she's worse than Trump because she's actually smarter about how she runs things. Like, she is probably a very evil person, but she's just smart to hide it, versus Trump isn't smart to hide it. So, you know what I mean? So a lot of things probably would have happened. But anyways, that's not the point. I understand that if you're not wanting to vote because you don't see your needs and you don't see yourself reflected in the parties that are out there, I totally get that. But also, do you want someone to lead that completely will not take you into consideration at all?
Absolutely.
Like, so when you're looking at who you want to vote for, is there you have to look at where most of your values kind of align, I would say, right? Like, I don't think you're ever going to find a political party that completely aligns with what you want, because I don't think that's something that exists, because then you would just have to run the party. Like, you can't.
Exactly.
Like, there's no one.
Exactly.
So please vote. Like,
Yeah.
we have to. If we don't vote, like, how are we expecting things to change?
Yeah, I think, okay, so I just, like, I don't know how much time we have, but, like,
Yeah.
very quickly, like, again, like, I think I don't have as much as, like, I think we're being pretty clear about where we stand politically and,
Yeah.
and like, which parties we like and don't like. I think ultimately, even if you like the ones that we don't like, just, like, the message is to, for me at least, to vote. I think that the really important thing is to vote, and I think the greatest, or one of like, a really good example that's kind of relevant that happened recently within Canadian politics, right? Like, when Rob Ford got elected, we knew right away, like, how many decisions he was making.
Yeah.
Left, right, and center, like, impulsively, like, without consulting as people, part of the government, people, part of the union, blah, 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 all this stuff. He was just making shots left, right, and center. And that's the type of leader that was elected, right? And again, that's his own story. Again, something that I think could have been solved given that more people voted. Okay, so that's one example. But the point that I'm getting to is that when he was making those decisions, some things did get stopped or got halted or were compromised from his initial plan because there were people on the inside who didn't necessarily share his conservative view, who stopped, for example, I know he wanted to chop City Hall in half, and I don't think that fully went through, but that's because you have enough people on the inside not agreeing with his perspective, and especially I know he wanted to make changes to the Ministry of Health and things like that, where enough people were raising their hands to go, okay, wait, that's a dangerous move. Why I'm saying this is because, again, if you vote for the party that you truly believe in, then you're voting for seats in the House where, in the situation like with Rob Ford, if we elect a leader that you maybe not would like, if he or she were to voice her opinion in the House, you have people on the inside, just like with the Rob Ford thing, going, hey, no, I don't like this idea, let's compromise. Like, that's what you need at the end of the day. You're, like Iman was saying, like, you're not going to get the perfect leader, but you need people on the inside to help negotiate those conversations. Because what you have at the end of the day is, if you have a majority of one party, that's like the worst case scenario, because you don't have a diverse conversations at the end of the day. You have a bunch of people who have already said they agree with your leader, right? Because they're already working for that party. So I think that's the thing at the end of the day. Like, I think I'm passionate about, I have been passionate about voting since before.
Yeah.
Like, I even had the right to vote, and I know in Australia, for example, it is a mandatory thing for you to vote. You have to do it. Like, it's obligatory, which I think is a great system, because then it forces people to not be indifferent about the news or about things that they see in social media. They go, oh, I'm actually making a choice whether or not I like it, and it forces people to be kind of educated. Yeah,
because at the end of the day, you live in whatever country you live in, whatever, city, however, like, I'm specifically speaking for us living in Canada, like, we live in this country, and when, like, decisions are going to be made whether we vote or not, and they're going to affect us, because we live in this country. We are Canadian citizens. We are going to be affected by what the government plans to do, and so if you don't want to be negatively affected, then you need to go and vote. And that may mean different things to different people, what negatively affected means. But I'm sure you guys can tell from our point of view, negatively affected means Conservative Party winning. So y'all need to go vote on October 21st, okay? Make sure you guys make the time, okay? Because polls are open from, like, morning all the way into the evening. Make sure you guys have the time. If you guys have work, like, let your, bosses know. Everybody knows you need to go vote. They have to let you go vote, okay? If you don't have your voting card, that's okay. You can still go take your ID with you, like a driver's license. I think, do they accept health cards now?
I think they need photo ID.
Health cards have pictures on them.
Oh, then I was thinking like SIM card for some reason.
Oh, okay. I think you can take your health card out. I'm not entirely sure. But driver's license for sure, like a passport, you can still vote if your voter card does not come in the mail. Do not let that stop you from voting. Like, we have this privilege that some people, like, years ago, people didn't have this privilege. So we need to go and we need to create change. Even if it's not something you're, like, deeply invested in, like, still go and vote, please. Like, research on the parties, even the parties you don't agree with, research about them, learn about them. Don't don't base your opinion on just what people tell you. So, like, right now, if you're listening to this podcast and you can tell we do not like the Conservative Party, you don't go ahead and you go, oh, that's it. Like, I know I'm not, the Conservative Party's not for me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not. But, like, you know what I mean? Like, just because someone's
Yeah.
telling you their opinion isn't the way
And
you
not
should
you.
go about voting.
Yeah.
Make an informed decision.
Yeah.
Go on
Yeah.
Google.
We're like gritting our teeth every time we
Yeah.
mention the Conservatives. I get it.
Yeah,
it's
like, we
awful,
know we don't like them, but, like,
you know,
still.
we'll give you the door. We'll leave the door open for you.
Go and Google it, and don't and look where your sources are coming from. Try to find impartial sources.
Yeah.
So yes, you can go onto the party websites, but the party websites are going
They'll tell
to
you everything and everything.
they're going to
know.
give you the positive side of each party.
Yeah.
Make an informed choice. Look at multiple sources. It sounds like it's a lot of work, but I think you'd rather be informed and make a choice rather than be like and then make a choice
Yeah.
and then go oops at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So read up on it. Read about what the parties are about, what they plan on doing, and just stay in the know. Just try to stay in the know,
Yeah.
and that's all I gotta say.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just make the time for it. I know it's not easy. Politics is not fun for everyone. I get
No.
that too. Like, even reading a little bit about it, you're just like, oh, like I didn't do poli-sci for a reason. Like, I get it. I honestly do get it. But I think that just the last thing that was like on my head that we didn't mention is that I know, well, at least with my experience, another thing too that you should take into consideration is that sometimes within your own family or within your own group of friends, I know people have that issue too, is that like you might not share the same perspective on life.
Yes.
And so don't feel like just because your parents or your cousins or your whatever the elders in your family or like even your your close friends are voting a certain way, like make sure to still voice your opinion. Like
like I did with my grandma.
Yeah. Every year, like it's fun. I can say this because like I talk to my dad about this all the time. Like when people come to your door about like they're campaigning. My dad is the happiest person to have through the door when it's time. Really? Yeah, he'd be like,
I just ignore.
No, he's so very honored when those things happen.
Yeah.
Like when it'll be like the actual person who's running for that award or whatever comes to your door, because that's very common, first of all.
Yeah.
But my dad thinks it's like he's being treated special. So he'll get very honored. He'll be like, oh my god, thank you so much for visiting. This is so great. Why don't you come inside, get coffee? I'm like, oh my god, I'm like so embarrassed on the inside my house hearing the whole conversation. And then he'll like agree to have like your little post on your sidewalk, like
yeah.
And I've always had conversations with my dad where like, what about me? Like, what about my?
Yeah, like that's not the party I want.
This is also where I live. What if I don't like this? So I'm always like, pick at him like that. Obviously, I don't give a shit. Like that's, he's also allowed to have his own opinion. But it's just funny. Like my point is like you might be surrounded by people who think a certain way, who have their own, mindset about which party they're voting for, and like we said, like even Muslims vote for conservatives. So it's hard sometimes because you feel like you might not, you might be doing something differently than you're supposed to, but like vote for what you think is right. Like,
vote for what you think is right. Don't feel pressured by other people, because definitely people it's human nature. People want you to follow what they're doing. Yeah. So they're gonna, especially if it's your family or something. Especially if it's your family or something, they'll be like, "Oh, as a family we vote for this." Make your own decisions. If you end up finding that you like the party your family votes for, great.
Yeah.
But
then it worked out.
Make your own decision at the end
grown,
of the day. And we've spoken enough, I think. Yeah. We've had a lengthy conversation. Mm-hmm. So we'll wrap it up here. But to end off with what we started with, Justin Trudeau.
I'm curious to know what you guys think, right? Leave something in the comments.
Let us know what your...
Gmail's always there.
Gmail, yes, we're always there. Talkaholicspod@gmail.com. Instagram. We're on iTunes now. So...
Can we talk about that really quickly?
Quickly. We gotta...
Well, thanks to everybody who said congrats and stuff. People are so excited
to
see
they were...
us post about it, and we're like excited that it's it's kind of an official platform. It's iTunes.
Yeah.
It's been a long time coming, but thanks to everyone who seems so excited about it. Hopefully it's more accessible than where we've had it before.
Exactly. And we still plan to expand more. So guys, make sure you subscribe on all of our, where we offer, wherever you listen, YouTube, iTunes, and SoundCloud. Yeah, give us a good rating. Leave reviews, because that really helps us when trying to reach out to more listeners. Yeah. So please do that. And then, yes, leave us comments about what you think about this whole Justin Trudeau situation. We would love to have conversations with people. Like, we talk to each other a lot, and then we would love to hear outside other people's...
group discussion, guys. Please help.
So, definitely reach out to us. We're always happy to converse with our listeners.
Yeah.
But we'll end it off here. We'll talk to you guys on the next one.